Working Fans Podcast. Cool.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Coming down 3, 2.
Welcome back for another week of the Working Fans Podcast. This is AJ. I'm the former wrestler. We've got Dave, the ultimate fan, here with us. As we do every week, our producer Joe likes to make us sound good and makes us look way more professional than we actually are. As always, you can find us on Twitter, that's @FansWorking, Facebook, Working Fans Pod. We've got email where you can reach out to us and please contact us to let us know what you think of the podcast and for any ideas that you might have. That's workingfanswrestlingpod@gmail.com. We're on Instagram where you can keep up with us at workingfanswrestling_pod. And then you can now listen to us on all major platforms, including Anchor.fm. We're on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Apple Podcasts, and you can actually check us out on YouTube. Now, it's important when you go onto the Apple Podcasts and YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a rating, let us know what you think so you can help us out and we can continue to do what we love and bring you guys in as fans.
531 this week. We've got probably our biggest fan, Randy, sitting in. And the topic this week is going to be the best workers of the decade. Since everybody's making a big deal about this being the last year of the decade, so we're talking 2010 to 2019. I'm going to give you guys my list first. I've got AJ Styles. I've got Okada, Daniel Bryan, Adam Cole. And I went with John Morrison for my last pick. I added Morrison to the list because since leaving WWE, he's kept relevant and kept doing something the whole time.
Impact. He was champion for that.
Yep. He made his own movie, bet on himself at a time when he was also in Lucha Underground, and has made something returning to the WWE now. We've seen the rise of Adam Cole in the last 10 years. Daniel Bryan, we've seen him go from something to seemingly out of it to back into it. Okada, he's had an unreal run in New Japan.
Yeah.
And AJ Styles, same thing. He's stayed relevant for 10 years plus.
Right. With New Japan, I wasn't really a fan, and then I heard about Okada and Omega having these crazy matches. I was it got me into, had to check it out.
Yeah. Now, you said you had AJ Styles. What was our other partner, AJ, list this week? Because you have his list too, I think.
AJ obviously went with AJ Styles to start it off. Daniel Bryan. He had John Cena on there. He had Okada, and he had Omega.
Yeah.
Jesse from New Hampshire, he sent in a few lists. His list, AJ Styles,
Wow.
Daniel Bryan, Okada, Seth Rollins, Kenny Omega.
Randy, hit us. What
All
do you
right,
got
so
for
my
us?
list is in no particular order. First, Chris Jericho. Do I need to say any more? I mean, the guy reinvents himself time after time, from the list to the Festival of Friendship with Owens, and now AEW, the youngest ever AEW champion, and with Inner Circle, the guy just does it all.
And I also say this, Jericho just posted something today, 2009, with a picture of the WWE Championship, 2019, picture of the AEW Championship. So there you go.
Who else does that?
He's done tours in New Japan with really good hype videos. He's been at the last couple Wrestle Kingdoms, really upping his stock.
Second, I got Daniel Bryan. I mean, I first saw him in Ring of Honor, and he was insane. It was just crazy matches. The first match I ever watched with him and Homicide. I mean, insane. I was there for WrestleMania 30.
Yeah, there you go.
In New Orleans. When he beat Triple H in the first match, it was unreal. Then he did the triple threat match with Orton and Batista. I mean, crowd went off. It brought the crowd back from the whole Undertaker streak thing because.
Those were two big items in that same year.
I'll say this too. A girl I was seeing at the time, she wasn't a big wrestling fan. She watched the Occupy Raw segment with me, and she totally got hooked into it. When Daniel Bryan was on there with all the people, and they were chanting yes, yes, and they would leave the ring, and Triple H loses his shit and finally agrees to make the match, and she bought into the whole thing. She loved it.
Then the segment you were talking about last week about Seattle, when Cena had to go up to everybody was chanting for Bryan, and Triple H was not liking that, and then they had to go up to Bryan, and they're in Seattle, and everybody's Bryan got so much for Bryan. WrestleMania 30, when we were leaving, I asked my buddies, I'm like, what are you going to remember more? Bryan winning the title or Undertaker losing? And the guys didn't know. We're like, I don't know. It's a tough call.
Right. Because you would have thought that at the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Who else you got on
number 3, I got John Cena. I mean, for his age and everything, like when he ever came out, he had incredible matches with AJ, Kevin Owens. I mean, every time, like he just... Like, nobody's like, oh, I hate Cena. Cena sucks and all this. But you can't say anything about his matches. They were just unbelievable. He was trying moves insane. He was always having consistently good matches. When he came out, like, he always got the crowd going. They have him start the show off. He come out, you know.
Yeah, as he's wound down, he's kind of grown into a new role.
Yeah.
And fit that perfectly, giving you good matches
I think
outside of the
Cena
mixed tag match at WrestleMania.
Time, we were tired of Cena. Now people miss Cena, I think.
Yeah. Who else gets engaged at WrestleMania and that says nope before it comes around again?
Yeah.
Good, man.
That was something else. Who else you got on your list?
I got CM Punk. I mean, I know he didn't wrestle for like half the decade, but when the whole 2000, I think it was 13, the whole thing with the promo. I don't want to say the name, but I'll say the promo. I mean, it got fans back into it. Like, I know I had a couple of friends that were asking me, like, was that real, Randy? That, I gotta watch this now. This CM Punk, I gotta watch WWE again. It made me cool. It made it cool again. It made it entertaining.
And I also say this
Undertaker had a great match with.
Yeah. Also, I'll say this too about Punk. They did get behind him at one point. He had the longest reign in the modern era, with the exception of Brock Lesnar. Yes. But Brock Lesnar did not compete, obviously, as we know, as much as Punk did. So, I mean, I do think that even though he said Punk hasn't been in for a long time, there was a huge part of that era he was dominating for a little while.
But things that Punk's done, he's stayed in everybody's mouths the whole time.
Oh, sure.
Like that podcast he did with Colt Cabana would be almost the real life version of the promo he did in the WWE, where he was saying things directly.
Just like the Moxley podcast. Those are the two you just can't forget about, those two podcasts.
And I mean, arguably, like whatever happened between him and Colt, it's so big that it's put like a division in that friendship, which is crazy to see. But he has stayed relevant, and here we're ending out the decade where he's getting back into wrestling, albeit through WWE backstage. So who do you got finishing up your list?
I got AJ Styles. I mean, from Impact Wrestling, and then like they wanted to give him some pay cut, so I said, okay, I'll go to New Japan, I'll go to Ring of Honor, and then comes to WWE. When we came to Royal Rumble, I mean, just boom, and then he comes champion for like a year.
Yeah.
Crazy matches with Cena and everybody. Like AJ Styles, like the guy doesn't age. He still has all these moves. It's just like, what is this?
Yeah,
like,
it's kind of funny.
Incredible.
Yeah, because I forgot to put. I did this list real quick, and one name I definitely left off was AJ, and it makes me mad. And as he's talking about this too, I'm thinking too, AJ was really like the modern territory guy. Like he was that guy that went to not ECW, but Ring of Honor.
WCW first.
He was WCW briefly, yes, and then TNA, and then New Japan, and he basically was the man.
I mean, wouldn't you argue him and Chris Daniels have almost had a similar rise coming in on the end of WCW?
Oh yeah.
I mean, they both ended up in Impact, but then they've branched off in different ways and made it big.
Yeah, and actually, I was Joe. Good point
Ring
too.
of Honor too.
With Samoa Joe, like he kind of is like right there too, except for that brief WCW. But like both those guys took off on TNA Impact Wrestling around the same time, and they kind of paralleled each other. But I would say this too: out of the three of them, if you had to pick one guy who was the best out of that group, it was AJ.
Yeah.
It was Styles.
Yeah. So now getting down to it, Dave, what's your list?
Well, first off, I'm sorry I left off Punk and AJ Styles. Those were two guys I would have picked, but
there's always going to be honorable mentions, because if you're putting it down to 5, you're going to be leaving people out.
Yeah. One guy I did change at the last minute. I originally had Seth Rollins on here just for the last couple of years because he has had a great bit of work despite his character being flat. But I had to go, Daniel Bryan. I remember Daniel Bryan just because Bryan might not have dominated the last decade, but I also feel like if you look at the crowd reaction, even a few weeks ago, where there was a segment with The Fiend where he took him like underneath the ring, if you watch how the people just started chanting, yes, 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 and even Bryan is his heel work. I don't think if it wasn't for injury or if it wasn't for the W not getting behind this guy, there's nobody that gets a more organic reaction than Daniel Bryan in the last 10 years.
He's had 2 big comebacks in the last 10 years.
I mean, he came in with the new Nexus and that whole thing.
And it was fired.
Yeah.
It was legit fired. And
him and The Miz, I mean, I know people don't like The Miz, but him and The Miz are like They had some incredible...
And that's something I think WWE dropped the ball on a little bit, too, to be fair with, too.
They had the Talking Smack.
Right, that was awesome. People still talk about Talking. That was actually in this Friday's SmackDown. They referenced that.
Yeah.
So Brian, definitely to me, is a guy that needs to be up there. I decided to go a little different, too. I didn't go with Okada, like you did, who I think is great and been great the last couple years we're on fire, but I went with Tanahashi. Because to me, Tanahashi is still like right there, but the beginning part of the decade, like that's where Tanahashi, if you go back and look at New Japan, was setting records with and the IWP title reigns too.
Yeah, and he almost handed the torch over to Okada.
Right.
I'd say early in the decade. I mean, they had a big rivalry. He's arguably the ace of New Japan. Mm-hmm. It's that 1 and 1A situation where they're both on top. It's arguable. I mean, do you like Okada? Do you like Tanahashi?
And I went to Lowell, Massachusetts for a New Japan card this year.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a guy more over than Tanahashi. Like the fans were just hanging on every word he was saying.
Yeah, the last couple of years when I've gone to the pre-WrestleMania cards, he's one of the bigger pops on the indie shows when they do have New Japan talent come in.
Great wrestler.
Him and Suzuki.
Another guy I put on there, not the most popular guy, but it's kind of foolish not to think that he hasn't been around, Roman Reigns. Like, he is just, for better or worse, he's been one of the guys in that spotlight. To me, if you listen to, like, the interview Jericho and Mox, had, like, on Jericho's podcast, it sounds like Roman hasn't been able to be himself a lot. Yeah. So I kind of wonder maybe if this guy hasn't got a fair shake. But at the end of the day, you can't say they didn't give him the ball or try. I mean, he did beat Undertaker. He has been in main events with Brock. Actually, his first match with Brock, where Seth cashed in the briefcase, I thought was actually on their way to being a great, compelling storyline.
The only time Roman was be himself is the whole when he
had cancer.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I know. It's true. I said that recently, too. It's like it's almost kind of like disheartening, but that's the only time they let Roman talk. And if you go back to like early interviews, I actually remember this one segment where it was Roman and Cena were in the ring, and John Cena said something, and Roman, you could tell, just ad-libbed. Yeah. And he was just like, you bet your ass John Cena sucks when Roman Reigns is in this ring. Right. And I was like, whoa, where did that come from? Right. And that shit never got heard from again. Like, they did not said they had him saying suffering succotash and other bullshit.
Right. So who else do you have on your list?
So rounding up the final two, gotta agree with Randy on this one. I don't know how he doesn't make a top 5. Chris Jericho. The guy has changed constantly, and like AEW, we don't know what this is going to be like in the next couple of years, but right now it's in a mainstream position, and who's the man? It's Jericho. And oh, by the way, a couple of years ago, Jericho was he was in wrestling. He was almost considered to be main event with Kevin Owens. It didn't end up happening, and that was one of the reasons why I think he was leaving.
One of the greatest pieces of TV ever watched in WWE.
Some of the highest rated segments, and then also Jericho helped draw like for New Japan. You take all that in consideration.
Even Omega, man, they had something.
Right. And at his age, to me, Jericho is just one of the guys. And the final guy I had to include was John Cena. Because at the end of the day, I get why they call him Big Match John. Because even when John was getting shoved down our throats, much like Roman, when it came down to go time, John wasn't putting in many bad matches when it came to a main event.
And that's how you get somebody over, is consistently putting them out there. It's how you get over a joke, get over a catchphrase, just consistently. It gets into the people's mind.
John Cena.
Right.
Now, I hate to not keep this evergreen, but we got our backs up against the wall with this NWA pay-per-view starting. So AJ Styles has been on every list. Bryan's been on every list. That's going to be the obvious one, too. For our last position, we're going to leave it up to a quick debate. Okada, Omega, Jericho. Who moves into that third slot?
For me, it's Jericho, because at the end of the day, he's had success in New Japan and WWE and now AEW.
I totally agree. I mean, it's just WWE and now AEW. I mean, the guy just recreates himself everywhere as he goes. He never gets boring. It's always like, you never know. He's must-watch TV. When he's on the TV, I'm watching.
Actually, yeah, and I would say this too. Besides Cody, like Jericho has been truly the highlight for AEW for me, on a personal level. And I will also say this too. You're starting to get to a point, I know we're talking about just a decade, Jericho's starting to get to the point that he's arguably going to be on that Rushmore list. Yeah. I'm not saying he is. We got so many greats in there, but he's making his case for it.
Yeah, and he's one of the few wrestlers that is able to get longevity out of a career just by the nature of what they do. Ask AJ. You won't wrestle for as long as you'd hope, and the injuries really pile up. Jericho has made it. So I personally would have picked Okada just for what he's doing for a title reign and establishing just the power of the title in New Japan. But we've had 2 arguments for Jericho. I can't argue against it. So we got it down to Styles, Bryan, and Jericho. Who's the first to go out of this list? Because we're going to debate this down.
Okay, I'm going to, unfortunately, to show you that I'm not being biased, my favorite wrestler out of this group, personally, is Daniel Bryan. I love them all, but Daniel I just have a connection with for whatever reason. He's always just, But because of the injuries, I'm going to take him out of this list with Jericho and AJ, who've been more consistent performers.
Fair enough, because when you put them all against it, Bryan has got so much goodwill. He's gotten these big pops, but there was a time where he was taken off the shelf.
Which helps. That makes you fresher.
Yeah, it helps, but for the sake of this conversation, it makes him the first one gone.
Yeah.
Too bad he had concussion issues,
Oh, yeah, no.
I'm glad he able to come back.
Yeah, there's no telling where we'd be.
Now, with these 2 last guys, Styles and Jericho, who do you pick for number 1? I'm going to start this off because, in my opinion, what Styles has done with less, arguably, starting off in not as big a company, doing time with the failing WCW. I mean, he got big in Impact, came on some people's radar during Ring of Honor, got bigger with New Japan, and now he's in the WWE where he's going to finish out his career.
With the club.
So, and I mean, that's where I would put my vote. Where are you guys at?
I got to go Jericho. AJ's been great now, but Jericho it's just, you never know what he's going to do. He's must watch, as I said before, and he's having incredible matches, and he's champion now. He was champion before, and whoever he works with, he makes look good.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go with Jericho as well, and here's why. If you put AJ Styles in AEW right now, AJ's going to be one of the pillars. He's going to be the man. But in my opinion, you know who's still going to have the strap? Jericho. He's going to be the guy. And at this point right now, talk to me in the next 5 years. AJ's still got some time left on his career here. I
mean, I would argue, I've made the case for Styles, but Jericho took the bigger gamble, going from a guaranteed, you know what you're getting with the WWE money-wise, to this new venture that can we make this big? A couple of people have mentioned how they didn't, I think it was Santana and Ortiz in an interview, they could have gone to NXT where they'd be part of the mix and move up. Or you can go to AEW and be a part of something where you're making history.
Right.
And I think the appeal of that is big to them.
And I will say this, too. If this argument was greatest in-ring performer of all time, I love me some Jericho, but AJ Styles would be my number 1 on that list because AJ Styles, in-ring, just in-ring, there's not a finer in-ring performer. But not counting just work rate, when you take the whole package and you're talking about success and the way he's been booked and the aura, that's where you go with Jericho.
Yeah, sure. Agree.
And guys, I just want to wrap this up by saying thank you for listening to us in 2019. We're going to keep putting out content in 2020. Next week, you got the best of episode, but it's Christmas, New Year's anyways. Hopefully you'll be listening, but we'll have something for you. It's not, we're going to have lost files. I can finally put in the Matt Coon audio drop that we never got to use.
Nice.
Might have an interview, too. We're working on something.
Might have an interview.
Great interview with Matt Coon.
Yeah, and I mean, that was just the thing where we learned that we couldn't do interviews on the phone because the timing wasn't right. And AJ will say thank you before listening that we are not the Working Man's Podcast. Not that I remember it, but hey, he worked for 10 years. I'm just a schlub that edits audio. So, thank you for listening to us this year, and we'll be back for you next year. Take it easy.
Good night.
Fuck yeah, let's just watch the pay-per-view.
All right.
Guys, thank you for listening to the 531 here on YouTube this week. If you like what you hear, you can always find us on Anchor FM, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and on the Apple Podcast where you can subscribe and also give us a 5-star rating. We appreciate you listening. We want your feedback, 531, and if you agree with us, if you disagree with us, we also want you to let us know. And let us know what your 531 would be. Come up with a top 5 and let us know, and we'll tell you why you're wrong. And in order for us to do that, please contact us on Twitter. We're at Fans Working. Facebook page, Working Fans Wrestling Pod. Email workingfanswrestlingpod@gmail.com. It's very important that you actually contact us on these platforms because we want this to be your interactive place to talk wrestling.